We are surrounded by history, whether we realize it or not. This being said, sometimes you can live somewhere your entire life and not realize the treasures buried in your own backyard. In the case of Westland, Michigan, an all-American city, such a treasure exists. A mill that has been used, reused, left deserted, and now brought back to its former glory. A place known as Nankin Mills.
I'm Carol Clements, and I'm a naturalist department manager here at Nankin Mills Interpretive Center. I run the programs that we do here and the exhibits that we have. Obviously, the Native Americans were here before the settlers came into the Nankin area. The Potawatomi tribe lived along the Rouge River, and they hunted and fished in the river and used the river for everything, all their daily needs. And we like to share that Native history with the school kids and the scouts that come out. Especially, I enjoy sharing how much knowledge they had about nature, and I like to tell the history before there were European trade items and things in the culture to show all the knowledge that they had about their area and how they lived with it. So we do a lot of Native American history programs for schools and scouts. It's a really popular program that we do. And we host a Native Heritage Day here in September, which is one of my favorite events that we do in the park. We have a group that we work with, the North American Indian Association, that comes out, and they all have traditional dancers, and it's just a beautiful event, and I really enjoy it. The research that I've done shows that the mill started in 1835, around that time, but it wasn't completed and open until 1842. And I went through all the deeds to try to determine exactly who owned it when, and it's a real interesting history of when it was owned. The families that did the most grist milling here were the Dean and Hardenberg families. And they purchased the mill in 1849 and pretty much owned it through 1887 when they sold it to the Lewis family. It started out, the land was sold after the War of 1812 as a land grant to some of the first settlers that moved into this area, and then they looked for places where there was water power to utilize to build mills, sawmills and grist mills, and Nankin became a site for a grist mill, which means grain. The farmers brought their grain here to be ground into flour. And from the opening date of 1842 until Henry Ford bought the building in 1918, this building was used as a grist mill. So all the farmers came and had their grain ground, and it was kind of a gathering point for all the community too. Grist mills tended to be a place where farmers hung out and gossiped and shared news and things like that. So, and along the Rouge River, we had sawmills and grist mills, and all the little towns developed around those mills. And then the community across the street from Nankin Mills was about 5 buildings, and it was called Pikes Peak because one of the guys who worked here apparently had been out to Colorado and liked the name. But so we had like a blacksmith shop and a general store across the street, and a Bowery, which was a building where they held dances and stuff like that. But and then after grist mill times, when Ford came out to visit this site with his father when he was a kid growing up on a farm near Dearborn, and they brought their family grain here, and he became just fascinated with water power. He just thought it was the way to go. You know, it was clean energy, and he called it white coal. And so when he grew up, he didn't like farming very much. He thought it was hard work, and so he was trying to help farmers, and he developed the tractor to help them with their hard labors. He didn't want to really stay on the farm, but he didn't want people moving out of the country either. He thought it was a healthy way to live. So when he got this idea, he called it the Village Industries, and he decided he wanted to buy all these water-powered sites along the rivers and the rural areas out here. And he wanted to develop them into little factories so that farmers could stay on the farm, but then come and work at the Village Industries to earn extra money. So that would make a farmer's life easier. but they could stay out in the country where it was healthy to live. He had all kinds of social agendas in his projects that he did. So I thought Village Industries was a fascinating project of his. And he bought up 20 mills in southeast Michigan. Actually, he bought a lot of other sites that were never developed, but 20 of them did get developed. And so he owned our building from 1918. He opened it in 1921 as a little machine shop. Originally, they were making screws, and they would feed these long rods into machines and turn screws. And 12 guys were working in the mill doing that. And then somewhere he got the idea that you had to match the number of employees at your site to the horsepower produced by your generator. And so I don't know where he came up with that formula, but he decided he needed 50 guys working at this site because the generator produced 50 horsepower. And Thomas Edison helped him install the generator here at our building. And apparently he and Ford used to come out here and visit all the time and check on the site and the workers. And they liked the sites to be really clean. He would come with white gloves and sweep across the windowsills to see if it was clean. And so in 1937 he switched the whole operation here to stencil and engraving manufacturing. In order to have 50 people working here. And at that time he added a big long flat addition onto the back of the mill to expand the operations that were going on here. And also at that time is when a lot of this the newer woodworking was done. It was a big renovation project by Ford. And so he owned the building until he passed away in 1947, and then his widow Clara donated it to the county in 1948. There was an agreement between Henry Ford and Wayne County Road Commission. The county built dams for him to use the water power along the Rouge River here, and he promised to deed back the land to the county when he was done with the manufacturing that he was doing out here. So that's when Wayne County got the building in 1948. And they weren't quite sure what they wanted to do with it for a while, and finally they got the idea to open a nature center here. In the early 50s, they sold ice cream and hot dogs out the back end of the long flat addition for a while. And then they hired a naturalist, Mary Ellsworth. She came in 1956 and started working on exhibits and programs and opened the old nature center here in 1958, and a lot of people come out today that remember that old nature center. She was a wildlife rehabilitator, so she took in a lot of injured animals and had pens that people could see all of these animals. If they were too injured to be released again in the wild, she kept them. And she had quite a little zoo going on here. Someone told me about a monkey that used to run around the building, and that she had a three-legged fox and just all sorts of animals people love to see. And she did a lot of nature programming until 1979. The county kind of went bankrupt, basically, in a recession, and they had to shut down the old nature center. And it was kind of sad. I found some letters where they told her she had to, clear out everything and go. But she did come back 1 year in 1985 and run a few programs again. But then basically the building was closed down. By the late 80s, it was in terrible shape and it was going to be demolished. So a friends group formed. It was during Michigan's sesquicentennial in '87. They were holding a ceremony out here, and the group noticed how bad the building looked, and they decided they wanted to try to save it. And that friends group is still active today, 25 or so years later. And they painted the building. They thought that's all they were going to do was paint the building. Well, they've done so much more than that. And they raised money and they got a state grant to renovate the whole building, so that was done. And the Wayne County Parks formed separately from the Road Commission, and the administration used our building in the early 1980s. They had their offices here. And by 1994, when they got that state grant, they added on the big addition in the administrative wing so that the park offices would move into that. And then the millage passed in '96, and that's when they decided they wanted to reopen the Nature Center, and that's when I was hired to work on the exhibit project and get programs going again. So it was a really exciting opportunity to come into a building that had been closed for so long and get it reopened to the public and get it off. You know, it looks so nice and have people enjoy it again. So we're happy that the public can come out again. We run a lot of interpretive programs. We have history and nature programs. We focus our programs on the Rouge River. That's kind of the theme of our center. And so we have nature history, we have Native American history here in our area. We do Underground Railroad history because that's part of our local area, and then Henry Ford's use of water power and all the grist mill history too. So lots of different programming goes on here. We have some of our bigger events. We work under the recreation department, which runs a lot of the real big events in Wayne County, like Mud Day and Marshmallow Drop and a lot of those real big events. So we do our, smaller group programs for school groups and scouts trying to earn nature badges and history badges, and we run some family programs. We used to run a big summer camp that was really popular. And so we just offer all sorts of different programming here on different topics, whatever schools want us to focus on for them too. If you're interested in coming out for a museum tour or an interpretive program, we'd love to have you come out. And you can contact me at my office here at Nankin Mills at 734-261-1850. And I also am on the Board of Friends of Nankin, so if you're interested in joining our volunteer group, give me a call at that number as well, and I'd be happy to let you know about our next meeting.